Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a high-stakes, literal ticking clock reality, water disasters, and the incredibly rigorous building science required to save a home. You know, you might think a flooded basement just needs a quick mop and maybe a desk fan, right? Well, actually, it's a high-tech race against physics and biology.
48 hours. That's it. That is exactly the amount of time you've got before toxic mold literally begins to colonize wet building materials after a flood. It's a terrifying biological countdown. The second that water hits your floor, the clock starts ticking loud and clear, and man, time is absolutely not on your side.
Because the harsh reality here? Water emergencies destroy homes in hours. Using real-world data and structural drawing protocols from A-plus water damage restoration out in Parkville, Missouri, we're going to explore exactly how an everyday, run-of-the-mill leak escalates into a full-blown structural crisis. We'll break down the anatomy of a flood step by step.
All right, part 1, anatomy of a water disaster. So let's look at how these disasters actually begin. 50 gallons. A standard household water heater usually gives out after about 10 years of use. And when it finally kicks the bucket, it can instantly dump up to 50 gallons of water directly across your finished floors. Just imagine that massive volume of water instantly pooling in your utility room or your finished basement. What a mess, right?
But here's the thing. Internal appliances are really only half the threat. In places like Parkville, you're combining those internal risks with some intense external pressures. We're talking Missouri River spring swells, heavy clay soil that basically acts like a giant bowl trapping water right against your foundation, and severe winter freeze-thaw cycles that can shatter your pipes overnight. Add in aging cast iron drain lines, and well, you've got a perfect recipe for sudden catastrophe.
Which brings us to part 2, the 48-hour mold countdown.
Once that water hits the floor, things go south really fast. In hour 1, water rapidly spreads to adjacent rooms, pretty much ruining flooring immediately. Fast forward to hour 24, and it's already soaked up into the drywall. Your walls actually start to swell, and the paint peels right off. And by hour 48, especially if you've got high summer humidity, dangerous mold officially begins taking over those wet building materials. The damage literally compounds exponentially by the minute.
Now, this critical window is exactly why trying to DIY a flood is just a losing battle. Grab a standard household shop vac. Yeah, that's going to take you all day just to make a microscopic dent. Contrast that with professional truck-mounted extractors. These machines physically pull thousands of gallons of water per hour. To stop the spread and actually beat that 48-hour clock, you need massive extraction power immediately. No way around it.
Moving on to part 3, the 3 water categories. Because as it turns out, not all water is the same. Understanding exactly what kind of water you're fighting is absolutely crucial for the first step to recovery. Industry standards classify water into 3 distinct categories. Category 1 is clean water. Think of a fresh supply line leak. Category 2 is gray water, which carries some contamination, like an overflowing washing machine. And finally, Category 3 is black water. This is highly dangerous stuff from sources like sewage backups or river floods.
And speaking of Category 3, this black water is a severe health hazard, just teeming with dangerous pathogens. Because of the extreme risk here, it requires technicians to suit up in heavy personal protective equipment, establish full plastic containment zones, and utilize EPA protocol antimicrobial treatments. It's not just wet, folks, it is incredibly toxic.
Okay, part 4, the science of drying.
So once the standing water is finally extracted, the whole chaotic emergency transitions into something highly calculated. This phase relies on a concept called psychrometrics. Basically, that's the applied building science of controlling temperature, relative humidity, air movement, and vapor pressure to maximize evaporation. You can't just crack open a window and hope for the best. You have to strategically manipulate the physical environment to force hidden moisture out of very dense building materials. To pull this off, technicians basically engineer a microclimate right there in your living room. They specifically heat the drying environment to between 75 and 80 degrees to maximize evaporation efficiency. At the exact same time, they deploy commercial dehumidifiers that can pull up to 150 pints of moisture from the air every single day. Meanwhile, high-velocity air movers push the vapor pressure. They are literally forcing the water out of your house.
And to ensure a home is truly safe, professionals don't just feel the carpet and guess if it's dry. They strictly adhere to the IICRC S500 standard. That's the uncompromising industry benchmark defining safe drying protocols, acceptable moisture limits, and rigorous documentation requirements. It totally grounds the entire recovery process in verified building science rather than just gut feelings.
And the wild reality is, different materials release water at completely different rates. Drywall? That might take 3 to 5 days with proper equipment. Hardwood floors take about 7 to 10 days. And dense concrete slabs? Wow, they can sometimes take a full 2 weeks to reach safe moisture levels. So if anyone promises you a fully dry house in 48 hours, they're probably leaving a lot of hidden moisture behind, which ultimately threatens your home's structural integrity. So you're probably wondering, what exactly is mathematically dry? Well, the S500 standard defines safe levels as having moisture content below 15% in wood framing and relative humidity below 40% in the affected spaces. The heavy equipment stays running until thermal cameras and penetrating moisture meters prove these specific targets are hit. That's the only way you guarantee the mold won't come back. All right, moving to our final section, Part 5, Navigating Insurance and Recovery. Dealing with the aftermath requires just as much precision as the physical drying, specifically to ensure your insurance policy actually covers the massive cost. The recovery process brings order to all that chaos through strict chronological steps. Step 1 is an emergency assessment within 60 minutes. Step 2 is aggressive extraction and drying. And Step 3 is final verification and rebuild. By following these steps, restoration crews generate the daily, verified moisture logs that adjusters absolutely demand to see. Now here is a rule every single homeowner needs to know. Never, ever wait for insurance approval to stop active water damage. Every single hour you delay just increases the destruction, and frankly, the final bill out of your own wallet. While you absolutely must heavily document everything for your adjuster, we're talking lots of photos and videos, your #1 priority is extraction. Act fast, document thoroughly. There's also a pretty big caveat for older construction. If you live in a home built before 1980, kind of like many of the historic homes out in Parkville, restoration crews have to be hyper-vigilant for hidden hazards. We're talking about pre-1980 asbestos hiding in flooring or drywall, and toxic lead paint that requires strict EPA guidelines. Before anyone even thinks about tearing open wet walls, these toxic dangers have to be identified and managed safely.
So, as we've seen today, water waits for absolutely no one, and it can destroy a home in mere hours. From the incredible physics of massive extraction to the strict building science of psychrometrics, fighting water damage is a calculated, high-tech battle. So the ultimate question I'll leave you with today is your home prepared for the next storm? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.